to the Doug and Mike Show. I'm Doug.
Hey, and I'm Mike.
And we have real conversations with real people. Mike, introduce our guest today.
All right, we're glad you are here to join us today for another great episode. We are excited that we have a great firefighter and a great firefighter story to tell today. So with us is Todd Neal. He is a captain with the Broward Fire Rescue Division of the BSO, Broward Sheriff's Office, down in that Fort Lauderdale area of Florida, for those that aren't familiar. So, Todd, thanks for coming on, bud.
Hey, good morning. Glad to be here.
So, yeah, you had a pretty life-changing, miraculous, what you call it. I mean, just one of those 1 in a million. You just happen to be, I guess, at the right place at the right time. Talk a little bit about what happened recently down in Plantation, Florida.
Yeah, we'd like to all say it's a 1 in a million shot, but unfortunately it seems like guys off duty, you're definitely put in this position and everybody has their call to act. So they just go in and do what they can do. But my recent incident was just getting off a 48-hour shift after July 4th, 2 crazy shifts in Deerfield Beach where we were stationed. Went and got a little workout in at the LA Fitness, and as I normally do, and got to head across the street to go take care of my best friend. She's battling cancer, and I walked in her door for maybe 30 seconds to ask how she was doing and if she needed anything. And we felt and heard the explosion. She was kind of shocked. Everything kind of fell off of her walls and her tables, and walked outside and saw the debris cloud, and probably less than half a mile away, and proceeded over to the incident.
Wow. I mean, that when the news reports came out on this, they were actually saying, people were basically saying this was, the most incredible explosion. They can't imagine, being, anywhere else. And just, it was as loud as they said it possibly could have been. People were like blown to their knees out in the parking lot that were even like just in the general vicinity of this area. I mean, what was going through your mind when you were heading in towards all that to help out?
It's a weird feeling to have to switch from being in your civilian mode, if we're ever really in civilian mode, into your rescuer mode. And it's a strange transition, but it seems like it takes place like almost immediately. And as you're pulling up, you're surveying, what else could possibly happen. I knew the area very well. There's a Publix there, which is what I thought originally had exploded with the gas. There was no mistaking when you heard the explosion. Right. Didn't even need to see the devastation level yet. You knew just from the concussion and the blast what it was. So once you saw the devastation at the LA Fitness, the weird part to me was I didn't really see a ton of people running around, and I didn't hear any noises except you focused in on a water flow alarm and the water coming from the sprinkler pipes that were busted. It was very, very surreal at first, and then luckily I found a guy that I knew from Miramar Fire Department that was already starting to treat patients, and asked him what we had. He said we got about 15 or 20. And at that point, the battalion chief from Plantation kind of pulled up, and we kind of asked him what he had coming and what resources he needed and what we were going to do. So I left Mickey there with those initial patients and started making my way around past the LA Fitness and the strip mall where the pizza shop had exploded.
Was it just an explosion with zero fire, or was there an active fire going too?
That was another. That was a strange thing. There's no active fire, so then you start processing in your head: is there a secondary device? Was this just an accident? And then you really start to get kind of careful and just trying to get people at a distance because by that point there were a lot of onlookers from the other shops in the area. It's a pretty crowded area in the mornings. Just trying to keep them at a safe distance. But there was no fire. I guess the explosion had definitely the force of it had blown itself out. There was still a very strong smell of gas in the air, and that's when I made my way around the backside of the strip mall and saw how bad the devastation was, because most of the explosion and the debris went north, which kind of covered the streets and the shopping center to the north. So,
That looked like
luckily,
a war zone there, huh?
oh yeah, it was pretty devastating. The only thing I can compare it to is when I was in paramedic school, we were dispatched down. I was working for a private ambulance company in Miami, and we were down the morning after Hurricane Andrew, and that's the more localized, but that was the amount of devastation that you saw.
Wow.
And when you arrived on scene, Todd, were there a lot of people? Were there a lot of civilians that were still wandering around that were in the area?
There weren't that many. It seemed like it grew over time. I believe we were very, very fortunate that it was a holiday weekend, because the occupancies that were in that strip mall, included like a pediatrician's dentist or a pediatric dentist office. We also had there was a little breakfast cafe that normally would have been packed. And one of our best friends, her daughter works in this, it's called Ninja Coding. It's like a computer development school. And usually on Saturday mornings, that's packed.
Wow.
So, that was another one. Then I afterwards, I looked at my phone and started seeing the phone calls of, our friends. Hey, is that place vacant? We have friends that work there. And, like I said, there's always a way that it touches home. By that point, Mickey, the guy from Miramar, he was doing all the treatment and setting everything up for transport, even though we had no idea where the units were. And I decided I went and started checking out the other building. So made my way around there, checked out what we had done, saw where the gas meter was, and then made my way back around and started poking my head into the occupancies, calling out to see if there was anybody in there and if I was getting any type of response. And that's when you see the picture that happened. We came across the two girls from the Tropical Smoothie Cafe and assessed them and told them what was going on. They were first trying to calm them down because they were definitely scared. And the one, she definitely wasn't going to be able to walk. So just picked her up and started walking her out to the main road and flagged down a rescue.
How long did it feel before the troops started pouring in?
It felt pretty quick, honestly, probably within 3 or 4 minutes.
Wow.
But, time seems to slow itself down. It may have been a little quicker, it may have been a little longer, but, that adrenaline dump seems to slow the body clock down. So,
And Todd, it's interesting to to explain or kind of paint the picture for those listeners that aren't familiar with how we set up and command and organize these incidents. I mean, just talk a little bit about how you're able to coordinate the dozens of first responders that are on scene and walk through the triaging. And you had talked earlier about offline with us about having to send some pictures to the technical rescue team before they came in just to know what they would have. So, I mean, a lot of moving parts, right?
Correct. Luckily, through the training and just experience being in a metro-sized department, you do get the exposure, you get the ability to develop those skill sets that are going to help you in a time like this. So literally when I got there and we did our initial triage and treatment of patients, it's very unnerving because you don't have any of your normal tool belt. So you kind of got to improvise with what you can. And then once we turned it over to another commander who showed up, told him what we had, he assured us we had rescues coming. Then immediately my thought process is I'm starting into almost like a checklist or a grid pattern in your head, like where I'm going to work from, what I'm going to try and, get information to try and get into the crew. So there's not a lot of, I don't want to say downtime, but there's not a lot of delay in the incoming crews having to deploy and know what their assignments would be. So immediately while I was walking over to survey the building, our technical response chief is a guy named Mike Nugent. So I called Mike and first I told him, I say, Mike, do you know what we got going on? And he's like, I heard we got a small explosion. I'm like, not quite. Let me send you some pictures and get TRT on the way.
Typical flow of information, right?
Right. So, it's there's also, we still have some communication issues in the county, but I'm hopefully if anything good comes out of this may help address some of those issues.
Well, it's the irony it's the irony I always talk about with our businesses. The things that are always described as the worst are always there's nothing to it. The things that are described to you as there's nothing to it are always the worst.
Absolutely. And you have to look at everything you see as an opportunity to get somebody better, or,
right.
do what we're supposed to do the right way. But anyway, so when I got a hold of Mike, I told him what was going on, and I sent him as many pictures as I could while I was surveying. Also, I thought of it some reason afterwards. My friend said, yes, you probably thought it in your head, but didn't really cross patterns till later. He goes, you're trying to preserve some evidence if there's going to be an investigation later, which I found that out after the arson department wanted all the pictures from my phone.
Yeah,
so
heads up. That's really good heads up on your part.
Yeah. But what ended up really being the plus of that was I was able to send them to our technical response director, and he was able to forward them to the captain that was en route to the scene. So he already had a game plan in his head and had everything sketched out of what they were going to need and where to deploy all the resources. So it, luckily we didn't have anybody in the structure that we had to rescue. But if we did, he was already in place to have everything shored up immediately and go after where he would consider like his high target areas to get a rescue.
So how many units do you think eventually showed up?
Well,
I'd probably say, honestly, between rescues, there had to be 50 units showed up.
And agencies, wow. Right? And probably a dozen agencies, if not more, I'm sure.
Yeah, there were multiple agencies, multiple jurisdictions. I think 5 or 6 different radio channels they were operating on. One of the interesting parts is our hazmat team wasn't even initially dispatched to it, but they shop at the Publix that's right there. So when they were on their way to go shopping at their normal time, they turned the corner and I see him, and I grabbed the lieutenant and I say, "Hey man, give me a radio. I got to have you do ops in here till we get our other guys here." He goes, "We heard it, but," he goes, "we didn't know where it was because they were on a different radio channel, and they really didn't see anything until they turned the corner off of the side road onto the main road and saw the units there because there was no dust cloud or debris column at that time."
Yeah, it's almost like a ClinCon scenario, like ready to go.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of crazy. I've been in a few of these. It just seems like, but you rely on your training and you just go through your mental checklist and slow everything down and just make sure you cover your basics first, and then you work from there.
So it looks like they had a couple dozen people injured. No one killed. Is that correct?
Correct. I think they had 3, like what we would call like level 1 traumas, which was, I was totally amazed. I thought when I turned that corner that we were going to have, 25, 30 fatalities. It's just somehow by the grace of God, we were able to skirt a total tragedy.
Yeah, the quote was, it was almost like the world was ending, is what I saw the headline in one of the newspapers the day after. And just between timing and, the event itself with the businesses being closed, the holiday weekend, et cetera, just a blessing, and then of course our hearts go out to those that were affected. I mean, the ones that were injured, obviously we know how devastating a burn injury is. It's about the most difficult injury to deal with, affects every system in your body. So we certainly wish all those who were injured a swift recovery.
So
yeah, absolutely. It's our different. Unfortunately, we do have a different mindset, and we tend to become a little detached at times. But that's almost what you need to get through and process a system like that. But luckily, we do have agencies in place and programs now that we didn't have when I started. I know Doug's very integral in those peer processes in our CISD and trying to make sure that the post-traumatic stress issues don't compound.
Yeah, it's not uncommon. I mean, you think about all of these big high-profile incidents and tragedies that have taken place, there's always the stories of the off-duty firefighters running in to help out, putting on a vest, getting a radio. I mean, you saw it in 9/11, you saw it at the World Trade Center bombings, and at the the Las Vegas shooting, et cetera. I mean, just time and time again. So we take our hat off to you, sir. That's a hell of a feat, and obviously you say he's just part of doing what you do, and all of us would probably do the same thing. But being in that situation is completely different. You're not with your crew. I mean, firefighters are always with their crews. We're always together. We have knowledge, skills, capabilities, the equipment. But when you're walking around with a pair of tennis shoes and some and some shorts on, you're not exactly all that valuable to the scene for a moment.
Well, then you have to utilize the tool in your belt, which is, your knowledge and your experience. And, luckily or unluckily, I've been able to hone those over the years. But I also, Doug would know I'm very fortunate also, like an incident like this, I have nationwide to reach out. I know he's probably talked to you about part of our brotherhood ride. And one of my best friends and friendship was like a brother from a different mother developed after the Charleston 9 incident. And that was another amazing, deal. They lost 9 firefighters, and that kind of started our mission that we've been going on for 10 years now. We ride a year or so after the fallen just to show the family. Everybody says never forget, but the proof's in the pudding. Either you get out and you do it, or you just let the memory. I don't want to say dissipate, but everybody tends to get on with their normal life and they forget the lessons of a tragedy that we're all supposed to carry forward.
No, it's great because we talked to Jeff Morse, and he just gave us the whole, how you guys put it all together, and just the impact it does have on the families, because, like you said, right about that time, their new normal is like people go back to cutting grass and everything else, and then you guys roll into town, and it just shows the brotherhood and sisterhood is real.
And some of this ride's there's another paradoxical part of our career. The more you reach out and the more you think your world is getting bigger, the smaller the first responder community is. So we knew the guys from Charleston. I did a ride to New York for the 10th anniversary of 9/11. And as soon as we get back, unfortunately, we lost 4 guys in Texas. And I'm watching the TV screen at work, and I'm like, oh shit, it's their shift, it's their zone, and it's family. And we had the same thing in Baton Rouge, and it just seems to happen. And we're still all a core group that's together, and we have a thing. It's one team, one mission. We never forget. And the other one is brotherhood knows no boundaries. So that's kind of the motto we live by. And I just hope that everybody, if you have an opportunity to help somebody, it doesn't need to be a big, massive tragedy. You never know. You may just be pulling over on the side of the road helping somebody change a tire, and that may be the one thing that gets them through the day.
No, you have a great heart, Todd, and I'm proud to know you. Known you many, many years, and just really respect you and what you do, man. You're a great example of what a great firefighter is.
No, I appreciate it. I just, it's honestly, to me, it's pretty simple. You just, do the right thing. It's not that difficult. I remember we mentioned it before, and there's different ways to lead. Some people are very vocal. Some people lead by their actions, but you just got to put yourself out there, and you find out the people who want to be led will follow. And and there's so many people out there, especially the millennials that are coming on now, that they're actually thirsting for tradition. They're thirsting for a direction. They want to belong to something. And I do see this groundswell in our age starting to take over. So it's very encouraging that maybe by the time I leave in a few years, that'll be the new norm.
No, you got that right. Well, Todd, thanks for coming on today. Folks, make sure you follow us on Instagram and YouTube and the Doug and Mike Show. We're also on smart speaker devices like Alexa, Google, and Apple Podcasts. I'd like to give a special shout out to our sponsor, Chief Miller. You can follow him on Instagram at chief_Miller_. Have a great day.